Hi, and today we're going to talk about the Social Security controversy. And before we can do that, I'm going to have to explain to you how the Social Security system works or is intended to work. Now, you probably know, if you work, and maybe even if you don't work, that how the Social Security system is financed is that each employee and the employer pays a portion of the income into the Social Security, what's supposed to be a trust fund. So about 13% of your wage, you pay 6.5, your employer pays 6.5. That's taken by the federal government, and what do they do with it? This is where we begin to have a little fun. Now, the government is supposed to save that money, and then pay your retirement benefits out of it. But here's a problem that they had. When they set up the system, people were concerned about the United States becoming a socialist country because the government, if it kept buying stock in companies, would become a major stockholder, and that might have a pernicious effect on the way companies run because the government would be influencing those companies through its ownership interest. So in order to prevent that from happening, the Social Security system was only supposed to invest in government bonds. Now, this creates an entirely different problem because what happens is it turns the Social Security system into something like, forgive me, a Ponzi scheme. And let me explain to you how this works. Imagine, if you will, that I want to provide a retirement fund for myself when I'm older. And so the way I'm going to do that is every month I'm going to take 13% of my wage and I'm going to put it in my pocket. And then I'm not going to invest in any external sources because I'm concerned about fluctuations in the external world. So I'm just going to keep this money in this pocket I call a trust fund. Now, what happens is that's probably a pretty good system. I mean, I got a mattress, and by the time I'm retired, it's full, and I have enough money to retire on. I can rest easy. But then I get an idea. What if I can use this money, the money in my pocket, to pay current expenses? Well, each time I want to pay a current expense, what will I do? I will write a note to myself saying, I owe me that amount of money. Now, and then I will put the note in my pocket in the place where the money once was. You're probably thinking I'm nuts. But if I'm the governor of the United States, I will call that note a treasury bond. And I will take the money that was supposed to be put in a lockbox and supposed to help the people when they're older, and I will spend that on current expenses, operating the government. Now, every time I issue a note, it means that instead of being taxed once, the American people have to be taxed twice. They were taxed first to provide the government with the money, which converted into an expense, and now they've got this note in their pocket, and the only way they'll ever get their money is if the federal government taxes them again, right, to pay off the note. Now, the government really can be very ingenious, and they can think, well, we never have to tax them again. All we have to do is keep selling more notes. Does it make sense? Not really. Now, people who say that the Social Security Trust Fund is solvent say that based on the fact that although all the money was spent, they believe that people will continue to buy the notes, and therefore the notes have value. People who fear that the Social Security system is about to collapse fear that the suckers are catching on, that they realize that you can't pay these notes, and so the government finds itself in a situation where the Social Security Trust Fund, which is supposed to have always been about the future, has always been about current expenses, and the only thing it has for the future is the ability to tax people to pay the notes, or the ability to get people to loan them more money at low interest rates. Now, once the economy starts slowing up, it's very difficult to collect enough tax money to keep that supply of money going. And once people begin to doubt the value of those notes, it creates a very serious situation about the future of those notes. So, those people who tell you that the Social Security Fund is actuarially sound are probably telling the truth to the extent that you accept this psychotic notion that writing a note to yourself is having money. If you believe that when you spend your lunch money or spend your, your savings and give yourself a note, that note is good, then you believe that the Social Security Trust Fund is sound. To the extent that you believe that there's something called real money or real wealth, and that's what you have to deal in, then you're going to look at that system and not quite be sure what's going to happen. Now, the problem with trying to fix this is twofold. One is the government has developed an enormous appetite and consumes enormous amounts of resources. And the other one is, each time it took those notes, it really took people's money and promised to provide them with something in the future. And the question is, how do you either explain to them that you lied to them, or how do you make good on those promises that you made? Okay? Now, it really isn't true what some politicians are saying now, that the expectations of the American people are too high. No, they're not too high. When the government takes your money and promises that it's going to hold it in trust and that it's going to take care of you when you're older and not able to take care of yourself, you are not unreasonable when you expect the government to deliver on that promise. It's just not unreasonable. The government, however, has made so many promises to so many people and spent so much money now that it's created a crisis. And what it's afraid is that it will reach some kind of tipping point, chaos point, when no one wants to buy these bonds anymore, and when the dollar is no longer the reserve currency, and all kinds of other evil things that are unfashionable will happen. But the one thing that we have to remember is that even though this thing looks like some kind of terrible game, it's very, very real. And we have to get focused on how we meet our commitments for the future.